everyone, it's me, Stephanie Nietzsche, and today I have the pleasure of meeting and talking to literary fiction author R. Janet Walraven. Hi, Janet, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day.
It is. It's a beautiful day here too. We had a lot of rain recently. I
That's
don't know about
nice.
you, but it's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. So now we have a different time zone. So what time is
Mhm.
it by you?
It is 10 o'clock, Mountain
10 a.m.
Standard Time.
And we're 12 noon. So yeah, we have a two hour time difference. Now, let me just ask you, a typical morning for you
Mhm.
as a writer, are you writing? Are you reading? Or like how does your morning, or are you taking a break right now? Like how does your morning begin as a writer?
Um, Usually, I'm going through my emails, and I always find something that connects me with what I'm writing about now. So for now, I'm writing historical fiction, a literary fiction about my grandparents, my Volga German grandparents coming from Kuta, Russia in 1913. And
Wow.
so I'm involved in these different email sites, these websites that I constantly check every morning because there's always something that comes up that reminds me of something in my story or
Oh,
some connection or some research. So that's how I get going.
I think that's fabulous. So, when it comes to research, did you have to go on certain sites to do this? Do you have old letters and pictures that you refer back to, family members? Like, how does that work? Because that's super interesting.
Well, I spent the entire last year researching. A lot of it was reading history books during the early 1900s.
Okay.
And in the meantime, I was contacting cousins, relatives. I have letters from my deceased aunts who had written all this information about growing up and
Wow.
what it was like and stories that their mother had told them. So I have I have a huge volume of interesting notes, stories, history, uh, everything that I want to pull together.
That's
So,
wonderful.
but it's been challenging.
I bet. I feel like, first of all, we do not hand write letters anymore. I
Right.
used to do that with my cousin,
Yeah.
and we used to exchange stationery and stickers, like fun things to dress up our mail. And she lived and still lives in Philadelphia, so she would have things that I didn't have living in New York, and I would have things living in New York that she didn't have in Philadelphia. So it was so interesting to open up those letters and see what was inside. So when you open up these really old letters, I imagine it's like magical in a way. It's like opening up like a treasure chest
Oh, yes, very much.
or a jewelry box with fine gems. Like it just seems right. It like
Yes.
how does that feel when you open that up and you dive into the past and really like a private communication between people? They probably never expected that you would be reading it or writing about it.
Well, yes, that's very, very true. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I took a trip to Kansas and Missouri to visit my cousins, and we have been tell I've been calling them and asking for stories, more stories about Grandma, more stories. So I've been taking notes and writing little chapters about those stories. Excuse me. But when I went visited my cousin in Branson, Missouri, he's hilarious. He was so much like his dad, my favorite Uncle Johnny. He was so much like his dad, and he was trying to tempt me on storylines. Well, we went downstairs to his fourth drawer file cabinet. He said, "I want you to look through this." So I'm looking through things, looking through, and I came up with this steel box that was about this size and opened it, and it was full of canceled checks from 1920s, receipts. I found all of these connections on what my grandparents were purchasing on the farm, how they were farming, people that they were working with, and the all those tiny little things that I had to carefully unfold because they were so old.
I
But
bet.
what it did was it connected me with more thoughts of doing it this way, or stories pulling out of it, making those connections. It was so exciting, really very exciting.
I can imagine. And what a great way to bond and connect with family
Yes, very.
over and share these stories. And even, for the relatives that haven't seen those letters, or, you know what I mean? It's just
Yes,
such an interesting process. And it really must take you back, and you say to yourself, wow, like this was a whole lifetime
yeah,
for people. And they were farming, you said?
yes.
So in there, do they share any, like, farming tips?
Oh,
Like,
well, yes, in fact, I had to look up vocabulary words for the type of machinery they were purchasing or using.
wow,
And I do still have a cousin who's in Western Kansas who took over my uncle, his dad's farm. And so he's next on my list for drawing. I've talked to him before, and he said, "Oh, I don't remember any of that stuff." And I thought, "Oh, yes, you do." So as I'm pulling these interesting farm machinery words, it's a vocabulary out, is where I'm going to say, "Yes. So what did you do? Do you remember this or that?" And it's going to be a lot of fun having that dialogue.
that
So,
is definitely gonna be a lot of fun. How far are you into this story now?
well, it's
Or did you just
I have a timeline, and that's where I'm really struggling with is what happened when, and trying to then
Ah,
going back and I can't start at the beginning. I have to just start with pieces, and then I'll have to find a way, which is the very challenging thing to work from one section to another. I'm trying to figure out how I want my formatting, how I want my chapters. That's the hard part. But just to
mhm.
sit down and write a story that my cousin told me is just a fun. I mean, that's just a joy.
Yes, definitely.
Um,
Now, how did you get this is not your first book about family,
no, it's not.
right?
No, my first book about family is Rainbow of Promise, and it's the love story of my parents during World War II. And
I
I
love
just
it,
had
yeah.
to tell it. And it's hard to say literary fiction um, because I inserted the dialogue, so it's fiction, right? But at the same time, these were all stories that my mother told me, that my dad told me. The journaling that I used, I published inside the book. The journal that my dad kept while he was in Europe during World War II.
Wow.
And so that's in the book. And it was just, it was such a joy to write because the whole time I'm in the writing zone, I'm just there present with my parents. And it was just fun to write. It was a legacy. I'm not the kind of author that wants to be famous or rich. What I write is what's in my head, what's in my heart, and what I want to get out there. So,
Stories that you wanna share.
yeah, that's right.
Stories that you wanna share. That's how I feel the same way as a writer. I just wanna share my stories. I wanna write them. I want people to read them and enjoy them.
Right.
That to me, that's my goal. So, now getting back to your parents' story, where did you get the idea to write about your parents? Where did you get the desire to create such a story? Like, when did you get the idea and say, "Hey, I wanna write this story about my parents"? Did you come across maybe old pictures, old letters, or they had such a great love story during such a hard time?
They were a love story. And I do have in the middle of my book, I have all kinds of photos, which I love reading other people's books like that and seeing the real people.
Yes, it's
Um,
great when we could connect the characters to a face.
yes. So going back, thinking back, how did I really get started? Um, it was a legacy I wanted to leave to my nieces and nephews. um, and to other people who relate to that World War II romance or what happened during the war. Um, I just wanted it told for whoever wants to read that, including my family. Although I have to say, I have cousins who are closer to me. Uh, in fact, my one cousin Sylvia, she wrote me a text and she said, "I want you to know I'm reading this very slowly because I don't want it to end." And
Oh,
I
that's a
just,
big compliment.
yeah, it was a big compliment. And so I appreciate that so much.
Now, this is super nice too for family down the line
Yeah.
as children get older, and even people that maybe know you or, knew other family members, and they're like, "Wow, this is a book about people that I know or people that I knew or
Mhm.
people that my family knew." I think that makes it all the more interesting,
Well, I
and
have
it's
a friend I taught with, and he read the book and loved it. And he said, "I'm waiting for the sequel." He said, "I want to know."
Ah,
I'm not born in the book yet, and he said, "I want
that's
to
awesome.
know what your life was like after that." And so,
Ah,
but I keep reminding him. Right now, I'm writing the prequel, and after I wrote this story about my parents, there I was reading a book about the strength of women, and I got to thinking about my grandmother, and that is what propelled me to write this story for our family and anybody else about what can happen to help you become this strong woman. And then I heard that this past March, that March is the month of strong women. And I thought, oh, that's when I'm
ah,
going to launch my book. So I have a deadline. So I want that to be next March because I want this book to focus on what my
strong.
grandmother had to go through in order to become this strong woman.
I
So,
think,
so
yeah, I love that topic, and I love that you're releasing it in March of next
yes,
year.
that's my plan.
It's quite, and you'll do it, and it's quite fitting, that's for sure. Now, was that your first book, the book that you wrote about your parents, or no?
No, my first book is I taught for 35 years. And I felt compelled toward the end of my, close to my retirement. I saw so many young teachers coming into the school who were so discouraged and did not have the kind of support, the kind of administrative mentoring support they needed. And I
Mm,
thought, I am going to write a book to help those teachers. And I don't want it to be a dull textbook. I want it to be uh, exact as possible, um, the scenarios from my classroom, from me meeting with administrators, me meeting with parents, and what my whole goal in teaching was to connect with each student and find their potential, help them find their potential. And so that's why I call the book Connect for Classroom Success, where you
okay.
really have to focus in on every single student. And I'm not perfect or successful 100%, but that was my goal. And that's what I have included in the book was different chapters um, on what can make you a stronger teacher. And the whole point is to have joy in teaching and learning. And that's what I wanted to show them through, mostly through dialogue
Mm,
rather than some boring textbook.
gotcha, gotcha. Now, that book is available on Amazon?
Yes, they're all on Amazon. And then
Okay.
my next book, I had a student years ago, and his story has been in my head for decades. And I thought I have got to find him because I lost track of him. I had to find him, so I finally did, and he gave me permission to write his story. And
Oh,
what
wow.
was different about that was about in my fourth year of teaching. That's when I learned that it was my responsibility to connect with every single student, no matter what. And he had a very profound story to tell. So he said, if this will help other people, if it will give them hope, I want you to write it. So I did.
Wow. So, and did you both speak on the phone? How did you
We Zoomed.
correspond?
We did a couple of
Oh,
times.
You zoomed. Okay.
And I wanted to find out about his life now when I was speaking with him. Um, uh, I don't want to give away too much about the book.
Right. Exactly. Mhm.
The title is An Absolute Truth, The Boy Who Saw the World Upside Down. And he also gave me
That's
the name of the boy that he wanted to use in the book. So it was
ah,
that was literal. He saw the world upside down. And so when I had him in my classroom as an eighth grader, I was not a special ed teacher. I didn't know what to do, how to do, whatever. But I thought, uh, I had one situation just a couple of weeks after into the classroom where I saw the light go on, and I thought, this kid is really special. He is he's, and back then we weren't using the word autism,
mm,
but I knew in my gut that this kid was brilliant, but not that. It was a total opposite of what he had been through school, where they just kind of put him aside because nobody knew what to do about it anyway. So
right, right.
the whole thing about uh, trying to give people hope is that he was shunned, he was marginalized. And that's what this book is about, to read it and know that I came up with a conclusion after working with this student. Every student has their genius. And I truly believe that.
Yes.
And that's,
Learning
yeah,
learning is not a one size fits all, right?
exactly.
And the same thing with teaching. And every student is different. Everyone is an individual, right?
Exactly.
So some people do not learn the same as
No.
others. And it's so difficult. And when you see it as a teacher, it has to be heartbreaking too that what the whole class is supposed to learn, you have your, well, I don't know, I'm not a teacher, but is it the syllabus? What is it called that you go by when you
Well,
teach?
that's the problem with education, in my opinion. I don't go by a syllabus. I do what I need to do for my kids.
I think that's wonderful. That
And you
that's
know,
the way teaching should be.
a chairman of the department always hands you this notebook, and these are the things you're supposed to go by and complete and whatever. And I think, yes, okay, I'll do all of that, but there's other stuff I need to add too.
Right,
I,
right.
I was kind of a maverick in teaching, in that I sort of got in trouble sometimes. That's I I knew in my gut from the time I was in sixth grade, this teacher I had, Mrs. Parker, I knew I wanted to be like she was, because she was that kind of teacher who really zoned in on each of her students, including me, and that made a huge difference.
Right. And
So yeah,
this is good for some parents to hear too.
well,
If your child is in a classroom and they're just not, learning at the same rate or retaining the information at the same rate, it doesn't mean that they can't process the information, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, because like I said, I'm not a teacher, but that style of learning just isn't for them.
that's right. That's why in my mind, I think, why ever did we have students sitting in desks exactly the same in rows, sit down, be quiet, and listen? I just think that's total opposite of learning.
Right, right.
So,
I agree with you. And a lot of things in school too, like when I was a kid, like you said, the opposite of learning. Everybody's learning the same thing, but if you're not interested in the same thing, like if somebody has 20 minutes of reading, but loves to read, loves to write, okay, now your 20 minutes is over. Now we're going to do math for 20 minutes. And that kid is like, oh, I hate math. I want to read my book. You know what I mean? It's so sad because now they're forced to do something that they actually have no real interest in. And I know math is important. I know all the subjects are important. But I guess my point is if someone really has an interest in something, whether it's drawing, remember, like you have like a certain amount, depends on the grade too, but you had a certain amount of time to draw, to color, and all those open up different pathways, right? And passages in the brain as you do these things. But you're so restricted. Like, I don't, what grade did you teach or what grades did you teach?
I grew junior high and high school mostly, but after I retired, I even went back. I was asked, I substituted, and I was asked to take over a teacher's position if they were going on maternity leave, or a teacher who left at the end of September because she wasn't getting the mentoring she needed, and I took
Mm,
her place. So I had fifth graders. So I did K through 12, but mostly junior high and high school. But back to what you were just exactly saying was I had a fifth grader who was very, very introverted, and he had dinosaur books with him all the time.
mm.
He was always looking at that. And I finally went over and I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, you know what? I want you to finish this math lesson. And then I want you to start planning to give a presentation to the class on dinosaurs.
Oh, I love that. Oh my God.
And he was so excited. I never had to ask him to stay on task again because he was so excited. And when he did it, he stood up as I was in shock because this student who was so intimidated seemingly by everyone, but he was so confident about what he knew. He stood up and gave a presentation just like you would hear in a natural history museum.
Wow.
And their kids were enthralled. They were asking him questions, and he knew every answer. He knew how to pronounce every dinosaur. He knew all about it. I had one little extra super genius in the class who said, "You mispronounced that." And he
Ah,
said, "No, I didn't. Would you like me to show you the pronunciation?" And the other kid just kind of sunk back. It was fabulous. And from then on, that's all it took was letting that kid be who he was a genius about.
yes.
And from then on throughout the year, the kids loved him. He played with them. He was no longer an introvert. He was no longer shunned. It was just fabulous.
That made such a difference. You lit the spark
Yeah.
and he just, and you gave him the confidence he needed. And that changed so much for him.
And that's
That,
what's important to do for every single kid in the classroom.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's really what you call teaching
Yeah.
because you brought out things in him that maybe never would have came out, like that confidence, like speaking in front of the class
Yeah.
because he knew so much about that topic.
Well,
I think
I
that's,
learn more from them than they do from me, I'm sure. But it's when I give them that opportunity, I learn tremendously, and it is a joy.
yes. I mean, I think that's what teaching is all about. It's not just teaching to the group, it's teaching to the individuals. And did you ever have the children in your class? Because I remember this. Some of the kids used to get in trouble. They would get caught doodling or drawing,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
teacher would say, "What are you doing?" But when you would look at that student's picture or doodle or drawing, it was amazing. It
Yes.
just wasn't scribble.
Yeah.
It was a gorgeous picture because they'd rather draw and create than to listen to what was going on in the class. You know what I mean? So that's like the
Well,
student with the dinosaurs, the same thing.
exactly. In fact, for my seniors in high school, I read them the book The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, The Little Prince. And I said, and in the Little Prince book, I'm sure you've read it, he has little doodles in there. These are not Van Gogh, these are doodles. And so I told the students, I said, as I read this, I want you to doodle. And and it was
Oh,
amazing what they came up with afterwards when they're all showing each other what they drew while I was reading. And
wow.
it was really quite amazing. And some of them thought, oh, I didn't know I could draw that well.
Exactly. Oh my God, this is killing me. I wish I had a teacher like you when I was in school. You know what I mean? I'm sure a lot of parents that are listening and people themselves are going to say, "Wow, I wish my teachers were like that." 'Cause
Well, I
class wasn't like that when I was, I didn't have teachers like that.
I did have, well, I traveled my parents moved all over the United States. I went to 26 different schools,
Mm.
from grades 1 through 12. And I had teachers who I couldn't wait to move again, but I also had teachers who I was heartbroken to leave. And those are the ones I truly remembered, except for one that I was my eighth grade English teacher. I was happy to move away from her. But
I had some of those too.
but I did I look back on some of my superb teachers and took what I could from them to become a good teacher.
When did you know that you wanted to become a teacher?
Mostly in sixth grade. Yeah. In fact, she had given us, she had us journaling everything. So when she was teaching grammar, she had us journaling that and writing down all the definitions of grammar, the nouns, the verbs, the pronouns. For some reason, I couldn't grasp it at all. I don't know why, but she had us like draw a line under a noun, two lines under a verb. You probably remember that, some of that, and little boxes around infinitives or little squigglies around something else. And I was trying to remember all the symbols for it. And when she gave us our exam, it was the only time in my life I ever got an F. She had an F on my paper,
Okay.
on my exam test, and I was just I
Devastated, right?
I
You
was
must have been.
devastated. I was humiliated. I loved her. I mean, I just loved her as a teacher. And she stood up in front of the class. I'll never forget. And this is how one of the big things I remembered to be a teacher like that. She stood up in front of the class and said, "When my best student flunks a test, it means I did not teach it correctly."
Wow.
And I sat back and thought, oh my goodness. So it wasn't just me. I wasn't
Right.
a failure. She was presenting herself as having failed at doing it right. And so she said, I'm going to teach the whole thing over again in a totally different way. A plus on my test.
Wow. Well,
And
I don't think most teachers would admit to that.
oh no, I think she's the only one I ever had who would admit to anything like that. And in
That's
fact, that's one of the things that really bugs me about teachers is that if a student asks a question like Liam did, many ask many questions, and I had another student like that who would say, well, what about, and I'm thinking, oh wow, we've got to find out what the answer to this is because I don't know. And so we would go on a research to find out what they were talking about and find out. But it wasn't me who was the sage on stage. I didn't want to be that, and I don't think teachers should ever be that. I had a poster in my classroom for years, and if you've seen the Peanuts little cartoons, where Lucy's sitting under her psychiatrist booth, 5 cent psychiatrists,
Oh, I think so. I think so, yeah.
and it says on the poster, um, if you are the one uh, if you are the one who, oh, wait a minute, like now I've forgotten it. If you are the one who's uh, wondering about life, be sure you're the one asking questions. So
Oh,
and it's too bad, I think, when I've talked, I worked with so many different teachers, and some of them were fabulous, and others weren't. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. We're not talking on that subject. Don't bring that up again. Don't go on a bird walk. But I told my kids, I said, sometimes the things that come up in our class that sound like they're off the subject, but it really turns out to be something brilliant that we didn't know.
right,
So
right.
there it is. And that's in my book for teachers. I want them to do this. I want them to make the kids feel enriched, make them feel like they're the ones who bringing all of this knowledge together. And I'm just sort of helping them go this way or that way or think about this.
Right. Helping to pull it out
Yeah.
of them too,
And
yes.
then they feel like they're the ones who see how brilliant I am.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes it works out that way, like you said, right? Sometimes there's a discovery made by a conversation that wasn't even on the topic that was supposed to be. That's why I
Exactly.
guess they say we really should be able to talk about anything. Because sometimes when you do get off topic, right, you can swing around to it
Sure.
and then you learn a
Yes.
lot in the
And
process.
when the kids, when they are going on a bird walk or something, you can look at them and say, now tell me how this came about in your bringing this in. Tell me the connection. And they'll look at me and laugh and go like, well, I was just trying to get off subject. And you can just be so genuine with kids, you know. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
I
think so too.
I miss teaching, I really do, but still involved with a lot of my kids on Facebook. So
Oh my gosh, that's really nice. That's one of the good things about social media,
yeah.
how we get to stay connected with
Yes,
people that otherwise we would have never probably seen again, right?
that's very true.
So
Yes, they're
social.
they're kids that I talk to, say happy birthday to, see their kids, their grandkids. I'm going, what? You're a grandparent now? Where am I?
That is right, how time flies.
Yeah,
That is incredible now that you get, and time, the older we get, the faster time seems to go. And then when we look back and see people that we knew as kids,
yeah,
and now they have families of their own,
yep,
like it's really incredible. Even people that we watch on TV, we watch them growing up, and then all of a sudden they're adults. I see, like, sometimes you watch a movie and maybe it's an old movie and the actor or actress is really young, and then you see them in something recent and you go, holy Toledo, they're a grown up now. It's like you never think that they're going to grow up. You know
no,
what I mean? So it's just like your book with your parents. Um, as kids, or even as an adult, but more so as kids, we never, I feel, think of our parents as children or their life before us. I feel like we think of our parents how they are in the moment and how we remember them sometimes when we were younger. And we never think, hey, my mom was a teenager. My dad delivered the newspaper. Like, we, you know what I mean? We don't think of our parents as
well,
adults, as
my
younger.
mother was a good storyteller, so I did hear some good stories about what she was doing in high school. She had a lot of fun.
Well, that's good.
My mother, that was the other reason too, is my mother was she was a wordsmith, and uh, she really loved. She could have been a wonderful teacher. In fact, she visited my classroom several times and told stories to my kids. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. Like Leave It to Beaver, you see him as an adult. That's exactly what you're saying, and I always wonder who they were then and who they are now.
Right. Now, did your mom read? You said she was a wordsmith. Did she read a lot of books, or did she do crossword puzzles? Other than use, her vocabulary as a wordsmith, did she?
Well, yes, she had a rule. You learn three new words a day, and you have to
Wow.
use each one three times a day so you'll remember it. She would sit while we were sitting there watching some stupid television show in the evening when I was a teenager. She'd either have her encyclopedia open, or she'd have the World Atlas open, or she'd have the dictionary open. And she was just reading and studying. And I told her one time, Mother, get a life. Uh, you know,
That was her life, though, I guess, right? She got joy at that.
but after I was married and I was helping us, I had students from foreign lands in my classroom, and so I surprised her on Mother's Day by telling her that I had found a student who's going to be in your city, and it's already been affirmed that you're going to take them into your home. That was her surprise for Mother's Day. And she said, "Oh, how wonderful." That was her response because I was afraid she'd say, "Hmm." But she said, "Where from?" And I said, "You don't know this place, Mother. And I know you can't even guess it or spell it." And so she said, "Well, where is it?" And I told her, I said, "It's Kota Kinabalu." And she spelled it and she said, "Oh, I know exactly where that is." She was
Wow.
so excited and it turned out wonderful.
You must have knew your mother very well if you knew she would take a student into her home.
Well, she was a very affectionate, kind, loving, generous person. And she was excited about that. So
Wow.
it turned out great.
Yeah, I'm so glad. That's fascinating because not everybody would do that, and not everybody knows their parents like that. You know what I mean? Like, some people may think their parent is going to be on board with that, and she was fine with it.
Well, well, I have to say, in all of my 35 years of teaching, I had a conversation with my seniors one day, and we had been reading, oh gosh, I can't even remember what novel it was, but I said, I'm going to say something to you that because it had come up that parents love their children. All parents love their children. They want them to be successful. And I said, I don't believe that myself. And some of their eyes got kind of big. And I said, I know that I have students who don't feel loved by their parents. And the kids started going like, yeah, got that right, you know? And
Oh,
they love the idea of being honest about it. And I said, all my students journaled, but I always had, I required journaling every single day, and they come in and put it on the rack every time. And I said, if you want it marked, I have a stamp confidential. If you want it marked confidential, I'll stamp it, and I won't read it. I'll just,
oh,
you did it for your assignment. I said, however, if it ever comes to a point of hearing about someone or you considering suicide, I will not, I will not stamp that confidential. I want you to leave it for me. And I told him, I said, what you have to do inside of yourself is to always be helpful with someone or get help for yourself, because that is not something we're going to not talk about.
right.
And we did have a couple of suicides in one of my years, my seniors, two of my seniors were not in my classroom, but all the kids knew them. And I told them, I said, this is why you cannot avoid, even if somebody's laughing about it, if somebody's just teasing, if somebody just makes some stupid comment about, oh, I'm just going to kill myself because I can't do that. You have to take that seriously. And so it's very important to be genuine, honest with your students. And you can always do it in a kind way.
Right. That's really heavy, though, as a teacher, when
Yeah.
you know or sense or even read, in some cases, maybe with the journaling, that this is on another student's mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's,
I even had a
can't
student
even imagine it.
who they were I just kind of was watching them in class, and I know they were writing some stuff down, and I thought, wonder what that's about. And they crumpled up the paper and just dropped it on the floor. And it was so obvious to me that he wanted me to pick that up. And
Right.
yes, so I did, and that was, please, I need some help. So I
Wow.
called him in later, and we talked about it. But I wanted students to know I was there for them no matter what.
And they could talk, yeah, because they probably couldn't talk about it with their parents.
Well, and we had decided that we had to decide how you want to handle this. And so the best thing was I suggested the school counselor, and that's how we took care of it. Was I made an appointment for him, and things worked out well.
Good. That's
Yeah,
very good. It's
and
so good when students or someone thinking about that has someone to talk to, because
yes,
sometimes that may be all it takes to
yes.
stop someone from doing that.
And
Now,
there's a professionalism about it that you can't just naturally go talk to the parents, or if the student wants me to or doesn't want me to. There has to be an avenue for help.
I could see that. And as far as the journaling as a whole goes, would
Mhm.
you say almost all the students that journaled enjoyed it? Would you say, or did you have to like pull some teeth with some, like, did some of them not want to journal? Or would you say the majority of students really enjoyed that and maybe found even a passion for writing as they
Well,
wrote these journals?
sometimes it took a while for them to, because I don't write. It's like I don't write, so what am I going to say?
Mm,
I would just bring up ideas like, what's your best birthday you remember, or what's the best trip you took, or what was your best Christmas, or what do you hate about school? Or, I just would give them some ideas. And then the kids, I didn't have to keep doing that often. The kids would throw up something out. And I said, if you ever want to read your journal in front of the class, you're welcome to. And
Oh,
once in a while, the students would say, I want you to read this story I wrote. Or they would just
oh,
make it,
nice.
they'd have a poem. Or they'd say, you won't believe what happened to me last summer. And
Oh,
you're all mad about this or that or whatever, and they just want it at one event.
yeah. What a great way to get it out.
And
And
sometimes that's just 2 or 3 minutes of a class period where they feel like they're engaged. They
right,
get to stand up and say something or do something, or they feel comfortable.
right, right.
I mean,
And
how
it's,
many times have people sat in a classroom and they're totally uncomfortable?
yeah, disconnected,
It shouldn't be that way.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
No, it should not be that way at all.
There are a lot of teachers who want to, they love they love what they're into math, they love what they're into science, they love whatever, but they don't love the kids. They're just the sage on stage and sit down and be quiet. I'll lecture.
Right. Listen, learn. That's it. And that's going back to one size does not fit all. Not every student, not every person, even when you're not a student, we all don't run the same way. Some people can read directions in a pamphlet and put something together. Other
Exactly.
people need to watch a video to see how, because the words mean nothing to them, right? It's all about how we process these things in our brain, and the brain is it's such an interesting mystery, our brain. But
Yes.
now, when you were a child, did you find yourself reading a lot or no?
Yes, well, I learned to teach how to read, but when I was, I don't know, 4 years old, I had two older sisters, and they bring their books home, and that's how I learned to read. And I remember my mother ordered what's it called? It was a children's magazine. She ordered that for
Oh,
me because I was bored.
highlights? Was it
Highlights,
highlights?
yes, highlights for children. Yeah,
Yes. Oh, sometimes we see them still in the doctor's office. I loved highlights when I
yeah,
was a kid.
I did
Oh,
too. Yeah,
it was great. Yeah.
yeah. So I learned how to. Your brain either learns how to read excellently or it doesn't. And
Hmm.
it took me. I had a sophomore class, honors English sophomore class, and we were doing Tale of Two Cities, which is a difficult book. And they knew nothing about the Revolution, French Revolution. They knew nothing about the history of it. But I was really tuning into kids who weren't reading well. And these were
Mm,
honors English class. So
wow.
I had some of the kids, I said, just read that first page for me, or read page 33 for me. And they would read it as if they were extremely fluent. But then I would ask a few questions, and they had no idea what they were reading. They could, and I thought, this is an honors English class. So I started investigating each student, and 2/3 of my class really didn't read well.
Oh, wow.
So I went on an exploration of trying to find out, how does a brain learn to read correctly. And it
Mm,
took me a long time. I could not find. There were things I could put on the computer where it was just workbooks. You sit a kid at the computer and has a workbook, fill in the blanks. And so I'll make the long story short. I found what was called Read Right, Read RIGHT, Read Right. I had gone to a conference. I saw this woman. Because I was looking at the itinerary and I thought, oh, there's something about reading. I'll go see her. So I sat in her little class. There were about 12 of us around a table. And within 5 minutes, I knew this is what I needed. And it's called Read Right. And I took the classes. It took me a year to become an expert coach in this. And that's what I started doing, was having all in my class, not just my class. I The principal and a committee decided that yes, we would take this on into our school. We evaluated every kid in the class in the whole school. This was high school, and 2/3 of kids, I should say 85% of the students, didn't read correctly. Some just needed a tweak. Some
right.
needed 2 years. And what happened at the end of our first 2 years in that section was the superintendent of schools for Washington State came to our school and said, "You have the highest uh, reading record of going from where you were to the highest in the state because of that
Wow.
rewrite."
And that's because of you. That's because of
I
you.
found it. Yeah.
And the students who are now adults, I don't even know if they even know how you help them become the
Yes.
readers, because these are things that we don't pay attention to. We don't realize, especially when we're kids. But you help them become the readers they are today. You must have.
Well, they knew when the light bulb went off, they knew. Because it was always, was that excellent having them read. It's a very specific, the hardest thing I ever learned how to do, because it was a huge paradigm shift in my head on how to teach reading. And it's an amazing program. And now it's online. Anybody can, the program is that anybody who takes this program can read as well as they can speak. I don't care who they are. And it has nothing to do with dyslexia, with anything else. This
Mm,
program will teach you how to read as well as you can speak. And I had students who were excellent speakers and students who were dysfunctional in certain areas, but they
mm,
learned how to read as well as they could speak. And I love
wow.
that program. I'm passionate about it.
Now, while we're on the subject of reading in school, how do you feel about this when the whole class has to read the same book? Let's say Catcher in the Rye.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well,
What was another popular one? Oh, Lord of the Flies,
of Mice and Men was a favorite.
of Mice and Men. So how do you feel when the entire class, or even the entire grade, whatever it is, has to read the same book? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one of the reasons I had in my early career, we were supposed to read the Diary of Anne Frank.
Oh, that was another one. Yes.
Yes. And that I knew about the Holocaust. They didn't know about it. But as they started reading it, I got the impression they just thought it was a story. And I said, wait a minute, we got to back up and find some background on this, what this is
Mm,
all about. And that is what I started teaching for 25 years. I taught the Holocaust. I always had a 6-week session of the Holocaust because I think it's very important. Those students who sat back and just reading a story, once I told some background on this, they sat up and they wanted to know more about it. And
uh,
then they were the ones who came in. Somebody brought in a newspaper article, and it showed an old picture from the 1940s of the rail yard, the rail going into Auschwitz. And they brought in the newspaper article, and they said, "This was on the front page last night. Now, how come they didn't know about it and do something about it if they had a photograph?" That's where they all got started going. And they came up and said, and the excerpt in our literature book was written like a play. And they all came in and said, "We want to put on the play for the community." I said, "Really?" And I had never done drama before. So I said, "If that's what you want to do, that's what we'll do." And they all picked,
wow.
parents built the scene, and it was amazing. But the kids at the end of that said, when we don't want to come out and bow. We don't want this to be a play. We want it to be an important story. So at the end of the auditorium was packed, and at the end, the kids just all stayed back off stage, and there was just silence in the auditorium. And pretty soon, somebody stood up and started clapping in the auditorium, and everybody stood up and clapped and said, and started stomping their feet and say, "Come back, come back, come back." Kids kind of sort of quietly walked out on stage and stood there just not bowing. And the whole audience, and somebody stood up and said, "We want to see this again." And the kids are looking at each other like, "What?" And they said, "We
Ah,
want to see it. We're going to invite more people. And we want you to do it tomorrow night again." And so they did.
that's
And
like a scene from a movie. I could visualize that as you spoke about it.
Yeah,
That's like a scene from a movie where it's real quiet and then one person claps and
yeah.
then the whole auditorium just lights up and people stand up, stomp their feet. That's amazing. I mean, if the entire world had teachers like you, we would all be in a different place. Well, not all of us, but it would have made a world of difference.
Well,
It
one of
definitely would have made a world of
the
difference.
one of the reasons I wrote this book for teachers is if you can't find joy, and I didn't say it like this, but I did it in a subtle way. If you cannot find joy in teaching and learning, go find something else that's joyful. But in my 35 years, I have to say 50% of the teachers were fantastic and 50% didn't belong there.
Mm, that's a high percentage. That's half. Yeah.
That's about
That's a
how I
very
felt
high
about it.
percentage. And I think you have to like children in
Oh,
order to teach them, right? I think that, and some people don't like children.
I went to a new school and I was being interviewed, and he asked me all these questions, as for an interview for the teaching job. And at the end, he said, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "Do you want to know if I like children or not?" He was embarrassed. He just turned red and sat back and like was almost angry. But I said, that's the most important question to start with when you're interviewing a teacher. And I'd been a
Yes,
teacher long enough that I knew that if he said, no, I don't want you in my school, I'd go find someplace else. I could be a teacher
right,
anywhere. But
exactly.
yeah, but he did hire me.
Well,
But
I
just
think
exactly what you just said. If you don't
that's
like to be around children, if you don't care about them, if you don't want to connect with them, don't do it.
yes. How can you teach them if you don't like them? That's yeah. And I have run into teachers that perhaps a couple didn't like me or didn't like others. Like you knew there were, or when the teacher has like a favorite, you could just tell, like you
Yes,
sense it, and it's like a waste of time to even to whatever. But anyway,
that's right.
this is a question I want to ask you. Um, how do you feel now about AI and writing? Because that's a big thing now with writers.
Yes. Um, I'm not getting attached or connected. In fact, I just, when I pick up my phone and say, okay, Google, and I want to ask some research question, all of a sudden it switched to Gemini, which was AI.
Ah,
I
that's
thought,
what it's
what?
doing. It's pushing this on us. Yeah.
It came onto my phone without my permission. And he comes across and he says, well, I'm not sure what it is you want to research, but no, what I do know is, and he goes on and on and on. And I think, don't give me this stuff. Just give me what I'm looking for. But
Right.
finally, just yesterday, I found out on my phone that I could turn him off and go back to the regular Google and get rid of him.
Ah,
But
okay.
just in all of the Facebook, I've heard people talk about, I just finished my book. I gave him my notes. He wrote it into a book for me. And other things I've heard, yes, the
I
actual,
can't believe they're admitting that. I
yes,
can't. Oh my
going
gosh.
selling like crazy. And then somebody else comes on and says, there are too many mistakes. There's too much grammar that's a problem. It's just a stupid story. And anybody could write that. So I'm looking at really or not, or they're doing an AI is doing their cover for them. And I think, wait a minute, I'm the writer. I want to write the story. I don't want somebody else doing that.
Exactly.
Happening all over the place.
How can someone call themselves a writer or consider themselves a writer if they are letting a program write the story for them? That takes away the whole joy of writing. And still, AI is still robotic and it's still feelingless. It's like void of emotion, AI.
That's what it feels like.
But this is what they're doing because some authors are complaining that their work, like they're analyzing the work. AI is analyzing the work and they're trying to make it, or it itself is trying to become more human like with emotion, with feelings, with reaction. So this is like a big concern, and I know a lot of writers are very up in arms about it. So for
Mhm.
writers to admit that they're actually using it, I'm surprised, and I'm sure there are writers that are using it that will not admit it. But even AI generated pictures and posts,
Mhm.
writers are complaining about seeing that too, or just people on the feed, readers, they're saying that's an AI generated picture. How dare you use AI? Like some people are really, really mad about it, which I don't blame them. But it's a big. I feel like it's a big concern. It's a big concern. It's a big threat. And I just want to say this: while we um, while we want to read books
Mhm.
and write books by a person, a human being, and you just said how Gemini was kind of forced on you, as the generations go and time goes on, the children now, they're being just handed AI and they're using it.
Yeah.
So we are going to lose writers, but we are also going to lose readers because the AI is just going to become so good at writing stories to connect
Yeah.
with the next generation that a human writer is going to kind of be obsolete. Like right now, we want to read stories
Mhm.
by humans with emotions and real feelings, and we know it came from a person, and that's what we want because that's what we want.
Right.
The generation that we are, that's what we want. But like I said, as the generations move on, they're going to be so computered, so AI'd, so this, so that, that they're not going to look for a real writer or, you know what I mean? And they create these images that are so great that look like people that these authors are going to have these AI generated images that almost look human, and the reader is going to connect with that, down the line. I'm not saying now, but down the line, it's a big problem.
It's well,
It's a big problem.
I think it's terrifying. I
It
really.
is. And I hate to think that my grandchildren one day are going to be reading an AI generated book that wasn't written actually by a person. Like, you know what I mean? That's a scary
Well,
thought.
so are they saying in the books that are being written by AI, does it say written by AI, or does it say anything about in the copyright part of the page? Does it say anything about?
I haven't read a book that's been written by AI. I don't plan to either, but one day I might have no choice. But I haven't written a book yet. But I do know this. When the last couple of short stories that I went to upload or download, whatever it's called, on KZP, on Amazon,
Mhm.
there is a question in there that says, "Did you use AI?" And then it gives you a choice: entirely, somewhat,
Really?
or barely. It gives you three choices. It's probably going to change
Interesting.
down the line, but there is that choice there. So you're going to see because you self-publish, right? You
Yes.
self
Yes.
When you're going to see when you go to put your manuscript in,
Oh,
the questions by next year are probably going to change,
oh,
but it does ask you if you have used AI. So I do imagine somewhere in maybe the credits of the book or what, I imagine somewhere it will say something about being, written by AI or AI was used somehow. And the same thing, I'm guessing with image. I think it asked that too. In any way was AI used, including images, um, wording, but everything seems to be AI. I feel like, is Grammarly now AI in a sense? You know that
oh,
writing.
I use Grammarly. I'm going to
I
find
use
that
yeah,
out.
I
I
use
put
I
it
use
in.
Grammarly too. So
Oh,
I'm wondering, in a sense, is that, are they fine tuning it to become AI? But that's one thing, you can write something in your when you upload your manuscripts on Amazon. And I use Grammarly because I'm afraid not to write it because if Grammarly is considered AI now. You know what I mean? But that's a whole other topic for another day. But I did want to touch on AI a little bit. I wanted to see how you felt about that and what your concerns were.
I'm just
Um,
pushing it away.
yeah, yeah, me too. I'm just pushing it away, and but I feel like one day I feel like one day we won't be able to. It's like when we all got forced to have flat screen TVs. We
Oh,
had no choice because they took away the tube TV because now we need cable for everything. Like, there's some things that they just force on us, and we have no say about it.
Yeah.
Maybe they give it some time, but I just see that this is what's going to happen. This is, but hopefully it's going to be a long time from now. But anyway, did
Right.
we have,
There is
go
a
ahead.
part of AI that I have heard about, and I don't know, that they are doing research for medicine. And they have found things that we didn't find, that human beings didn't find, and they found it further on. And I think, okay, if that's what's working well, fine.
Right.
We did hear that the genius who came up with AI was on CBS Sunday Morning. That's my favorite show. And he said, I it's the same thing that Einstein said, I wish I'd never invented the bomb, you know. And he said
Um,
on CBS Sunday Morning, we were not ready for this yet. He said this should not go out yet. We haven't perfected it. So when it comes to medicine, okay, maybe they're finding good avenues for that. But when you're talking about writing and reading, that's a whole nother story. We're human beings who are telling this story. Why would
right.
we want a robot inserting anything in that?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And it's
And
like
wiping out.
when I'm looking at my manuscript and I'm looking at Grammarly over on the side and it's saying what I should change, what I should change. And most of the time, I'm saying delete, 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 because I know why I said it and how I said it and why I did it. So I
Exactly.
think,
Yes.
oh, no, no, no.
Yeah. It puts in words
Yeah,
that you would not use,
yeah,
right? It becomes then if you do use it, the story becomes two voices. It doesn't sound like the original
that's
author.
right. That's right.
And also, when it does offer something, it also makes a mistake. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I mean, technology as a whole, it's wonderful because, like you said, with medicine and with bodies, and they say one day we're just going to lie on something or walk through something, and it's going to tell us what's wrong or what could be wrong and what we should or could do to fix it. I think all that's fabulous. But of course, as a writer,
Yeah.
I don't like it. And I think it's not good to it takes away
So
the job of a writer.
do you write your books on computer or do you write longhand?
I write on my laptop. It was very difficult for me to make that switch though, because I've been writing for so long without publishing, but I've been writing for so long, I never had a computer or a laptop to write on. So I was so used to just writing everything. I have books and books of handwritten stories and notes and dialogue and scenes. So when I first sat down to write, to say, all right, this is it, I'm going to write a book and finish it, because I never finished a book, I was handwriting everything. And then I would type it in the laptop. And I said, this is going to take me so long. If I write an entire book on paper and have to put it on my laptop, I had to force myself to write in a laptop because I'm just so used to I was so used to writing everything by hand. But now my handwriting it's terrible. I can't even understand what I write half the time. If I got to write something real quick, I can't even understand because I don't write, I type everything. How about you? Are you writing or typing everything?
I've never, well, poetry I've written longhand, but nothing else. So yes, I use my computer all the time. I cannot keep up with my mind handwriting.
That's another thing. I wouldn't be able to keep up either.
Yeah.
So I would write so fast
Yeah.
that I wouldn't know what I wrote because my mind was going so quick and my hand, yeah, it couldn't keep up. So, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Sometimes when I'm there typing, and I learned that I took typing, and I worked for an office deal where I had to learn how to do it fast and accurately. So I'm really good at that. But I'm typing along, and my mind is just flying, and it's almost like my mind is connected to my fingers. I mean, it's
Yes.
just there. And even a name, when I think of somebody, what am I going to call that person in my story? It comes to my mind and go, oh my gosh, that's a good name. Where did that come from? But it's once you're connected with that. But then you've got people like where what I heard Stephen King writes everything in longhand,
Oh, maybe he does. Yeah.
and a lot of writers do. And a lot of people write in pencil on yellow tablet because they just like the feel of it. I can't do that. I'm just at
Ah,
my computer and I'm flying.
Yeah. I'm so glad that I could type now the story because like I said, it would have just taken me so long. And there, I feel like there's so many things we didn't touch on, and I know we hit an hour, so we really should wrap it up. But we'll definitely talk again
I hope
because
so.
I'd love to talk about your next book after it's written, or we could even talk before then. But there's just so many things we didn't cover as writers, like because you just mentioned a character's name, scenes, the writing process, reading reviews. I mean, there's just so many things I would have loved to talk to you about, but we can always do this again. And we don't even have to wait until next year because there's still a lot we haven't covered. But one thing I want to make sure before we go, did you show us all of your books? I feel like there's a story
No,
missing.
no, I have one missing, and this is a children's book.
That's the one. That's
And
the one.
I say it's from ages 3 to 103. Um, it's sibling hedgehogs who sneak into the Louvre in Paris,
Yeah.
and they have a secret. And there was a
Oh,
very serious purpose for my writing this. It's also very educational because I have links in the back where they can take virtual tours of the Louvre.
wow. That's really nice.
It's really a fun book, and I love hedgehogs. I collect hedgehogs. They're all over my house.
Oh,
I've always
damn.
wanted a real one, and I have a friend in England who has a hedgehog, a pet hedgehog. I thought, oh, I would love to do that.
Oh, he should send you videos of the hedgehog, and then you could work that into some kind of trailer too for your children's book. Oh my gosh, I think that
Yeah.
would be
Well,
fabulous.
I do have real hedgehogs showing in my trailer. All my books have
Oh,
trailers.
oh, that's great. And you know what? I'm going to ask you to send me the links to your
Okay.
book or any of your pages, anything you want to share, and I'm going to add that to the video because I found out a couple weeks ago when I spoke to another writer, they were not able to add the links themselves onto YouTube. So I'm going to need you to send me the links and I'll put them in the comments so that way everyone knows where to find you. Because on YouTube it doesn't allow other people, other links for some reason. I have to add them.
Oh,
But
so
all of
send
your
them by
books.
email or
Oh,
message in Facebook or
you can email them. You can DM me. You could
okay,
send them in messages any
okay.
way you like and just, yeah, give me all the links. And that way, whoever's listening, you'll be able to find the links right in the comments. And what a pleasure. Oh my gosh, what a pleasure it was
Well, you're so much fun.
to meet you. You're so much fun and you're so interesting. And I love to hear about the teaching part of your life as well. And like I said, if we all had teachers that taught like you, the world would definitely be a different place. And so many kids would have came out so with so much more information and so much more inner, everybody thinks we have to learn this. When we're a kid and we're in a class and everybody's getting it and you're not, that's got to be the hard. Like I really struggled with math, and kids
Mhm.
were flying through it. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then I had to take, I think it was my SATs. It was a big test. I don't remember the name of it. And as the math got harder, because it starts out easy, it starts out with the plus and the minus and
Right.
easy times table. But then when it started getting difficult, I just filled because I had to fill in all the circles. I just filled in anything because I knew even if I sat there for hours trying to figure it out, I never would.
Mhm.
Because also I felt like at that time I had to take a couple of days off. I forgot what happened. That's when I first got glasses. Look, I'm getting this big long story. But anyway, math is not my thing.
Yeah.
And I know if I had you as a teacher or someone who taught with the book, using the book that you wrote for teachers, I bet I know everything I needed to know when it came to math. If
Yes.
that teacher, if your book would have been available to that teacher at that time, who I'll never forget because I don't think he liked me anyway. But anyway, that was fifth. I think it was fifth grade. That's a whole other.
Right.
That's a whole other story. But oh my gosh, what a pleasure! What a pleasure, Janet. I cannot wait to speak to you again because I have so much more I want to ask you and so much more I want to hear about.
Well,
So
I would love to chat with you anytime.
great. So we'll definitely do it again. We'll do it maybe in the summer,
That
right?
sounds fun.
We'll do
Sounds
it before your next book. Thank you so much. So everyone, it is Janet Walraven,
Walraven, just like
Walraven, sorry.
Raven.
I'm
That's all
changing your
right.
name. And you said it's pronounced, I will also want to hear the pronunciation again in
In
how,
Dutch,
in Dutch.
oh, Walraffen is how
Walraven.
they, when I landed in Amsterdam and when I went up to the passport booth, he looked at it and he said, Walraven, do you speak Dutch? And I went, oh,
Um,
yay, you said my name right.
isn't it great when someone can pronounce your
Yeah.
name? I know my married name too is difficult. It's Nietzsche, but everyone has a different way of pronouncing it.
Oh,
So
I thought it was neat.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean when it comes to the names, but your name is, yeah, totally different from when
And
the
I love your
W
spelling,
is
STEF.
pronounced.
I love your spelling of your name. I finally got that right.
Oh, that's another thing. My first name is with an F, and a lot
Right.
of people spell it, they're so used to the PH.
Yeah.
But my mom named me after Stephanie Powers. She
Oh,
loved the girl from Uncle.
oh, wonderful.
So that's how
Love
that's how
that
I get
show. Yeah.
that F. Yeah, great show. That's how I get
Well,
that
I
F.
have to say, you are a wonderful interviewer. You're so much fun.
Thank
And
you.
we could go on forever. I mean, because you're so good at that. So
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you so much. I appreciate that. I really do because I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I love to talk about writing and books and work and people's, history and how they started writing and what they're writing about and what gave them the desire to write it. So, and you're, like I said, you're super interesting. And the teaching stuff is really amazing. It really is. So
It's my
definitely,
passion. So,
your students were lucky. Your students were lucky to have you as a teacher. So,
well,
and
I
I
still
hope
have
a lot of
one.
teachers pick up on
Every
this.
year I get on Mother's Day, I get one who lets me know that I was a mother to all the students. So that every year I get a text or a card.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
makes me
You
feel
touch you touched you touched so many, I'm sure. And if they thought about writing cards, I bet you'd have like the postman would be so mad because they'd have like sacks full of cards and letters for you. But yeah, great advice as a teacher. And I hope any teachers that are watching this look into that book. And the title of that book again is
Connect for Classroom Success.
Connect for Classroom Success. Because I do have some
Connecting with
teachers
students. Yeah, connect.
that follow me and probably teachers that I don't even know their teachers follow me too. So Connect for Classroom Success, and that is available on Amazon.
Yes, all my books
Wonderful.
are on Amazon.
All of your books are on
Yeah.
Amazon. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for
Oh,
joining me
thank
today.
you. This has been such a pleasure.
And we will definitely chat again real soon. I hope we don't automatically there's my, okay. I had to look for the little hand fell asleep. And we will chat again soon. So everyone, you can find Janet's books on Amazon. And thank you again. It was a pleasure. And we'll
Thank
talk again
you,
soon.
Stephanie. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay, enjoy your
Bye-bye.
day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.